Live from Washington, D.C., this is Balance of Power with Joe Mathieu.
Here we go again. Welcome to the Friday edition as the Senate prepares to vote once again on stopgap funding bills in an attempt to reopen the government on what is now day 3 of the shutdown. Thanks for being with us. We'll get the latest in just a moment from Bloomberg's Laura Davison here in Washington. And we'll bring you an important conversation with Republican Senator Todd Young of Indiana. His view now on day 3 with votes set for this hour. We'll have analysis from our panel. Bloomberg Politics contributors Rick Davis and Jeanne Zaino are with us for the hour. And we start, as always, with a look at Wall Street. Let's get into the Friday trade right now with Alexis Christoforous in New York. Alexis, how's it look?
Thanks very much, Joe. New records again across the board on Wall Street for the major indexes, even as the government shutdown drags on. The Dow Jones Industrial Average powering ahead, up 514 points right now. The S&P 500 up 30. The NASDAQ up 38. We've even got the NASDAQ 100 in record territory on a gain of about 8 points. As for the treasuries, yields are higher today with the 10-year yield at 4.11%. We've got the 2-year yield at 3.5%. And gold is also back in record territory, now trading at $38.83. And West Texas Intermediate crude snapping a 4-day losing streak, now at around $61.16 the barrel. And Bitcoin up another 2% today at $123,200. Amazon Chairman Jeff Bezos weighing in on the euphoria around artificial intelligence, telling Italian Tech Week in Turin today that spending on AI resembles what he calls a, quote, industrial bubble that could lead to lost investment. But Bezos adds that the long-term benefits of AI to society will be, quote, gigantic. Shares of NVIDIA are pulling back a little bit today after hitting a record high yesterday. AMD also on the downside, but Broadcom now up about 0.4%. Applied Materials is down nearly 2% after saying an expansion of rules that restrict the export of its products in China will take another chunk out of its revenue. Applied Materials and its peers, we know, have faced increasingly strict rules governing their ability to supply and support customers in China. And the U.S. service sector stalled in September as business activity shrank for the first time since the pandemic. Orders barely expanded. The Institute for Supply Management's Index of Services finding 7 industries contracted, including employment. For on-demand news 24 hours a day, subscribe to Bloomberg News Now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Alexis Christoforous. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Back to Joe Mathieu now in Balance of Power.
Alexis, great to have you along on the Friday edition. Thank you for being with us here on Bloomberg TV and radio. We'll have another look at Wall Street with Alexis Christoforous about 20 minutes from right now as we follow the beat here on the last session of the week and what is day 3 of your government shutdown. There's going to be more voting today, but it does not look like that's going to break anything here. In fact, we're going to likely go through the weekend and start things on Monday with the government shutdown. About a half hour from now, we expect voting on the continuing resolutions that you've already seen voting on. We've had 3 rounds. Today is the 4th. And as we heard earlier from the leadership, they don't expect anything to change. Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Leader John Thune speaking to reporters earlier today. Let's listen.
They did it 13 times during the Biden administration in the previous 4 years, but suddenly they won't do it. So everybody has to ask themselves why. It has nothing to do with health care. The subsidies that they're saying is the issue is not the issue. That is an issue for the end of the year.
They have an opportunity, a 4th opportunity, 4th time today, 4th time to vote, to open up the government and to allow us to do the rest of the work that the American people expects us to do. They have taken hostage the federal government and, by extension, the American people.
We're going to see that 4th round before this hour is out together, and we'll have our eyes on the Senate floor. Ahead of our conversation with Senator Todd Young, who's going to join us live from Capitol Hill, our friend Laura Davison is with us, Deputy Bureau Chief here for Bloomberg in Washington. Laura, it's great to see you. The Speaker says this is not about Obamacare subsidies, that's an end-of-year issue. Democrats are telling us, no, open enrollment's begun, notices are going out, this is a now issue. It doesn't sound like we're any closer to a deal.
We are 3 days in, and we are no closer. And it's very likely in 3 more days, we will still be at this very same spot because they're going to go home for the weekend, come back Monday night is when they actually get back into the Capitol. They'll then start talking. They'll have maybe a little sense how constituents are feeling at home about this. So you may see some Democrats who have a little bit more cold feet But it's very likely that, this time next week, we'll still be having a similar-ish conversation.
This time next week. So, okay, so we're beyond a week at that point. When does the pressure become too great for Democrats to hold out? We heard references to a jailbreak. I think it was Dan Sullivan who was talking about that the other evening, the Republican from Alaska. They need what? 5 more? Pick off 5 more Democrats? Is that possible in lieu of a deal?
At some point, that will have to become possible. They'll have to get to some sort of resolution. But whether that is, a week or 2, or we're talking something more like a month, that's a very different thing. There's 2 key indicators to watch here.
Right.
One, what does the polling look like? Right now, the early polls have shown that Republicans are still taking the vast majority, or not the vast majority, but the majority of the heat for this. If that flips and suddenly Democrats are now being blamed, that's going to cause a lot of people to start to wobble. Additionally, is how much of is this healthcare issue becoming a thing? Those notices just went out early this week, telling people what their premium spikes were going to be. So that hasn't really trickled down. People haven't really realized if they're the people that are going to be affected. So that will also matter of how much that resonates through those key areas.
No mass layoffs, at least not yet announced formally by the White House. The intention has been displayed in the memo that we've been talking about this week from Russ Vought. Are you surprised we haven't heard from the president? He's got nothing public on the schedule today. He could own this little bit of a news vacuum that we have on a Friday, couldn't he?
He absolutely could. And we saw him a little bit earlier, when he truths and said, hey, he wants to have this Gaza deal done by Sunday. But on Shutdown, he's been keeping a little bit more of an arm's length here. I think there's some risk, particularly as he moves into, mass layoffs or some of these funding cuts. We saw with Doge, job cuts were not popular. So this is something that Russ Vought, he's letting him kind of take the image. As with Doge, he let Elon Musk sort of be there. You've also seen J.D. Vance, the vice president, who's really been out, after that meeting Monday at the White House with congressional leaders. It was Vance out there talking to reporters at the briefing earlier this week. Also Vance. He was on doing the rounds of shows the morning after the shutdown took effect. So you see Trump, sort of recognizing that there may be a political risk here and wants to put other people in those key spots.
I guess as the president of the Senate, there's something to be said for that. And the line from J.D. Vance is, I'll go up there to break a tie as soon as you guys are ready. Let me know. Does that mean his star is rising at this moment?
This is certainly an opportunity for him to show that he can lead. Trump has not come out and said, yes, he is my handpicked successor. He's kind of making Vance work for it. That's what we're seeing here. And if Vance, sort of stumbles and falls, this could, be a data point that Trump then uses when he, in a couple of years, presumably, is going to say, here's my guy that I want to be the candidate in 2028.
I mentioned we're going to talk to Todd Young next. When these votes take place, will they look just like the last one, or could we see a Democrat or 2 fall in the mix?
It's likely that we'll see those Democrats all move together versus, having 1 or 2 and having it be sort of a slow trickle. Never say never. The Senate is a crazy place and stuff happens last minute all the time. If we'll start to know if there's going to be some sort of jailbreak or a mini jailbreak if they keep this vote open for a long time. If there's a bunch of action on the floor, if senators are huddling, that's when we should all start to get excited that there may be at least a little bit of incremental movement.
Great to see you, as always. Thank you so much. Laura Davison, steering our coverage here in Washington in the midst of a government shutdown. And we're on day 3 here. Ahead of the voting, we are joined. It's a pleasure to have Republican Senator Todd Young from Indiana with us just outside the Capitol before he heads back inside the building to get involved here. It's a treat to welcome the senator to Bloomberg TV and radio. Senator Young, I've never had a chance to talk to you, and I appreciate your joining our conversation today. I want to point everybody, before we get to all the politics here, a tweet that you put out there. The federal government is currently shut down, Europe, but my team and I are still working and available to Hoosiers. If you have questions or need assistance, our contact information is below. To what extent, if at all, is this impacting constituent services? Is your staff still intact?
Well, we're still intact, Joe. We're still here to help Hoosiers navigate what is unfortunately a manufactured chaos by the National Democratic Party and their far-left donors and supporters. Chuck Schumer has decided to go with the far left on this rather than with the American people. He wants to shut down our federal government because he's mad at Donald Trump, and he understands that so many other Democrats are mad at Donald Trump. And so it's my job and the job of other Republicans to explain to the American people that whatever substantive issues the Democrats say that they want to work on, those are best worked on when government is funded, when government is still operating, and worked on through what we call regular order, which is a structured conversation so that we can work through substantive disagreements. This is always what the Senate has done at its best moments. Unfortunately, this is one of its worst moments in recent memory.
Well, and God knows we haven't seen actual regular order in a long time. I'm still threatening to break out the regular order T-shirts one of these days here, Senator, so don't give us a reason. But I wonder, I don't know if you heard my conversation with Laura. We're hearing from Democrats that this the issue of Obamacare subsidies is not an end-of-year issue, as the Speaker and John Thune have said, but it's a now issue because the open enrollment has begun, the notices are going out, and people might drop off the rolls if they think they can't afford health care. Is that a concern of yours?
Well, it absolutely is. November 1st is, to be precise, when open enrollment begins. So we really only have a few weeks here and realistically a couple of weeks because insurance companies will require a bit of time to prepare the new enrollment packages. So a couple of weeks to make any sort of substantive changes, the very changes that Democrats say they're shutting down the government for. So if indeed this is really why they want to shut down the government, let's come to the table. Let's open up government as the polling indicates the American people want, and let's deal with whatever challenges we have like adults.
What's going to happen at the vote coming up here? You're going to be on the floor in a moment. Are you hearing from any of your Democratic colleagues that they might join John Fetterman and others?
Well, I'm not particularly optimistic. I think most of the predictions are that the couple of brave Democrats who decided to vote affirmatively to keep government open yesterday, their numbers won't be increasing. But I hope that's different. I hope they continue to listen to their constituents. I think your previous analyst's assessment that it may take several days before things change and then they could change all at once is probably accurate. In the meantime, myself and others will be taking our case to the American people that this is an entirely manufactured crisis. It was brought to us by Chuck Schumer, and we have to return to a more orderly form of government.
You worried about the potential for cuts that Russ Vought is talking about? The president's up with a video on Truth Social that's don't fear the reaper. He's got Russ Vought up there with the SIF and the whole thing. How concerned are you that you're going to see furloughs turn into permanent layoffs in your state?
Well, listen, Russ Vought and the president have made threats before. I think they have to be taken seriously. I'll continue to do my job, but know that we have some strong personalities. And for those who have concerns about their threats, if the government isn't opened, I think they should take those concerns very seriously. I think Democrats, who have prided themselves over the years as the party of government, should also take those concerns very seriously.
Is Vought weaponizing the shutdown? You could have this thing open, as we've established, in any number of days here with a deal. Why talk about permanent layoffs and closing agencies now?
No, what the Democrats are effectively asking us to do is to undo some commonsensical changes that we made to the One Big Beautiful Bill to our health care in this country. I don't believe that Obamacare is structured in a thoughtful way. I still believe that there are better ways to deliver health care than through highly expensive Obamacare plans. So as it relates to health care, I think we need to deal with root causes. Therefore, I remain very much open to dialogue with my Democrats about how we can come together and affect those sorts of changes. But instead, what they've done here is they're trying to negotiate with Republicans and with the American people effectively under duress. And that's a precedent we don't want to be establishing.
We spent the last couple of evenings up in the Senate, Senator, and spent some time with potential deal makers, including Democratic Senator Jeanne Sheehan. We talked with Tom Cole on the other side. Are we going to see a gang emerge here? Maybe you were part of some of these conversations on the floor, and I realize we're not talking about anything led by Thune or the Speaker, but just some organic conversations that are taking place between Republicans and Democrats to move the needle on this. Is that how this ends?
Well, listen, I'm here to make law. I'm here to affect positive policy changes. I share, I guess you could say, the president's zeal for cutting deals from time to time, but those have to be good deals. And they have to be deals that are arrived at under the right conditions. And what this shutdown situation is all about is a manufactured crisis so that Democrats can get more leverage over policy. And more importantly, they want to send a message. They want to send a message that they're fighting at a time when they effectively have no power because the American people rejected their platform and their candidates last election.
So you're going to go home this weekend, we understand. I don't know if you're literally going home, but you won't be in session and voting this weekend. Is that part of the strategy from Leader Thune here to let people go home, think about this, maybe hear from constituents? What's going to take place Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, I think what Leader Thune is recognizing is that this is effectively in the hands of Chuck Schumer and his members, and they're going to have to make a decision. In the meantime, we could be observers of this farce and stay around Capitol Hill all weekend as they try and figure out how to restore some measure of order and credibility to Senate operations in the near term, but we think they can make those decisions among their own tribe on their own time. We're going to go out and many of us go back to our states and take care of other responsibilities.
There's a big story for us here today at Bloomberg, in that we do not have a jobs report because of this shutdown. The BLS data is not out publicly here. I know you're on the Finance Committee, and I'm wondering how concerned you are about the interruption in data collection and data posting here. Senator Elizabeth Warren, for instance, is calling for the release of that data, saying, surely it's been compiled. Why can't we see it? Would you support releasing the jobs report?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. Government, one of the important things we do to ensure that our economy is able to run as smoothly and as efficiently as possible is to produce data. For example, we need to know that we're actually creating enough jobs right now to keep up with the increase in the labor force. So that's one of many things we need to be looking at as people look to deploy capital and make important business decisions. And I think all the more reason that the Democrats should be opening up the government so that that data can be out there.
I guess we're in for a delayed release here. Lastly, Senator, and I appreciate all the time that you've given us today, you're also on the Intel Committee. Right before you joined us, Secretary Pete Hegseth told us that the administration has struck, and we see the video here, the thing is totally destroyed, another boat that they say is being run by narco-terrorists bringing drugs to America. It took place right off the coast of Venezuela. Are you comfortable with this continued action, and would you support strikes against cartels inside Venezuela?
I think Congress needs to get involved in this space. I am a member of the Intelligence Committee. I was formerly a member of the Foreign Relations Committee. That latter committee has jurisdiction over our war powers. I would encourage that committee to hold public hearings about this matter. And if a vote is required, a vote to authorize military force, that's something that falls within Congress's area of responsibility under the Constitution. I've worked with Senator Kaine, who's been perhaps the most visible and thoughtful member on the Democratic side as it relates to these matters. And I understand that in coming days, we will be voting on a war powers resolution related to the first strike. So let me be strong on this. I think there's no more fundamental responsibility Congress has than to make sure that their elected representatives can be held accountable for our decisions to go to war.
Well, I know you're speaking as well as a Marine and a graduate of the United States Naval Academy. Thank you for joining us today on Bloomberg. That's Todd Young, the Republican from Indiana, and a pleasure to have you here as part of our conversation today on Balance of Power. I'm Joe Mathieu in Washington. We'll have our eyes on the Senate floor for when the voting begins straight ahead, and we'll assemble our panel next. Rick and Jeanne straight ahead right here on Bloomberg. We'd been counting the days since President Trump gave Hamas, as he said at the time when Benjamin Netanyahu started the week at the White House, he said 3 to 4 days he would wait for Hamas to respond to this offer of a peace deal. Well, peace proposal. Again, an offer. We haven't heard from the other side, and Hamas has said that this is not a take it or leave it. Donald Trump now has set a Sunday evening deadline here, 6 p.m., after announcing the 20-point plan alongside the aforementioned Benjamin Netanyahu. There on Truth Social, the president writes, and it's a long post, Hamas has been a ruthless and violent threat for many years in the Middle East. He goes on to refer to the October 7 massacre, talks about the hostages, of course, and again, makes it clear here, release the hostages, all of them, including the bodies of those that are dead now. An agreement must be reached by Hamas by Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Washington, D.C. time. He refers to it as a last chance agreement. If not reached, all hell, he says, like no one has ever seen before, will break out against Hamas. Let's assemble our panel for more on this. Bloomberg Politics contributors Rick Davis and Jeanne Zaino are with us. Rick is partner at Stonecourt Capital, our Republican strategist. Jeanne, our Democratic analyst, democracy visiting fellow at Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center. What's going to happen at 6 p.m. Sunday, Rick, that hasn't already happened to Hamas if this deal is not accepted?
Yeah, look, I think that, maybe statement out of the White House that says let Bibi Netanyahu do whatever he wants to do, as you point out. I mean, you can't imagine anything else more aggressive than his land invasion of Gaza City. So I'm not exactly sure that's a meaningful outcome to Hamas, because they're already dealing with that even today. But look, I mean, if you were on a taco watch for this 3 to 4 days, that announcement was Monday. It's now Friday, and he's given them till Sunday. So who knows? Maybe that extension happens in Sunday. Oh, we're making good progress with Hamas. I'm going to give them another 48 hours, another 72 hours to sign an agreement. It does seem like all the pressure that is coming to bear around the region and from the United States could get Hamas in the right place. And if that's the case, it's worth whatever extensions or delays might happen, because this is a war that needs to end. People need to be fed. And this needs to be done for the White House in order to be able to show that the president is something more than just taking credit for peace deals that would have otherwise happened without him.
Jeanne, I don't know what your thought on this. Do you look at this as an extension? And what does the threat of all hell matter when Gaza already is hell?
Yeah, if you just take a step back and look at how this was crafted, it was crafted by Donald Trump. It was amended by Netanyahu, Dermer, Kushner, and Witkoff, and a really interesting piece in the New York Times today on Witkoff and his family, as they have benefited from the work that they've been doing. Setting that aside, what role did Hamas play in crafting this plan? The answer is zero. It was presented to them as a take it or leave it. If you leave it, you will be destroyed. So I'm not sure, just looking at the process, how they can come along with it. Now, we do know they are not monolithic. There's certainly more hardliners and people who might be willing to deal. But unless I think Donald Trump is willing to deal, calls himself a big deal man, this is a plan that Hamas simply can't get on board with. There is absolutely nothing in this plan, short or long term, that allows them to have any sort of political or military influence going forward. Every single point of this plan is to the benefit of Israel. And so it was drafted by Israel, and we were told by Netanyahu and Trump in that press conference that you covered that it was take it or we destroy you. But again, what incentive do they have? They're destroyed either way. Either they sign up, look at the 20 points, they're destroyed, or they don't sign up and they're destroyed, apparently. So, it's not like any peace plan I've ever heard of. Negotiations involve two parties, not one. And this one involved the U.S. and Israel hoisting it on Hamas.
Rick, the president also writes in this lengthy post, I'm asking that all innocent Palestinians immediately leave this area of potentially great future death for safer parts of Gaza. He says everyone will be well cared for by those that are waiting to help. Does anyone in Gaza believe that?
It's a tough sell. They've heard evacuation orders by Israel in the past, where they've suffered with lack of shelter and food. But I think it's just part of this campaign that's being waged now out of the White House and around the region to try and force Hamas to a deal. We have to remember that this is an extraordinary agreement. It includes every major country with majority Muslim and Arab populations in the region. Enormous pressure from a neighbor in Egypt to get this done. They are part of this agreement. They have signed on to it. They were part of the negotiation around it. And even the Hamas refuge in Qatar has signed off on this. I mean, this is a real historic achievement to get that region on board with the United States and Israel on a peace agreement. And Jeanne, you're right. There is no turning back. Hamas is a terrorist group pretending to be a government, and the rest of the region and Israel and U.S. has made the decision to ensure that they never get into a governing position again, and that is the deal. And so either they want to continue the violence, or they want to end it by releasing the hostages that they've had now for almost 2.5 years, and get on with rebuilding Gaza. And there is a pretty significant investment in the effort in the region, including Tony Blair, to come in and try and fix Gaza and create a little better place for Palestinians to live.
We, of course, note that October 7 is next Tuesday. Jeanne, there are reports now that hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are trapped essentially in Gaza City because they don't have the finances or the means to move. Should the U.S. or neighboring Middle Eastern countries provide those logistics?
Well, the U.S. and neighboring countries should address what Israel has been doing in the Gaza Strip. I don't know if we need these people to move out of their home or Israel not to be on the ground engaged in the kind of horror that it's engaged in at this point. This started out as a 21-point plan. It is now a 20-point plan. What was the 21st point? Was Donald Trump's insistence that Israel not try to occupy the West Bank. That was stripped out of the plan. That is now 20 points. And speaking of the politics of this thing, you read through the points, and I've read through them carefully. There is no political endgame here. It says at the end that it will be a neo-colonial, yes, Rick is right, Tony Blair, Donald Trump, and some of the Israelis will, and some of the Arab nations will train the Palestinian Authority. And once they are fully trained in the way we want, then they will indeed run that area. But what about self-determination for the Palestinian people? So, yeah, we should help out these people. Absolutely. There's huge humanitarian needs, but we are the leading democracy in the world. What about self-determination for people who have been living in hell? And Hamas, October 7th was horrendous. The absolutely all of these hostages should be released, and they should have been released a long time ago. They never should have been taken. But this is a horror show over there, and this so-called agreement is to the benefit exclusively of Israel, and it will do nothing to bring peace to that region. And maybe Hamas takes it. I'm not sure it matters either way, because it is going to leave the area in the hell and neo-colonial trap that it's been in.
Well, I want to hear from Rick on that too, Jeanne, but I'm just curious, do you see the endorsements from foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, UAE, Pakistan, Turkey, Qatar, Egypt adding credibility to this proposal? Because it doesn't sound like it.
No, not that much. The reality is when they were all over here at the UN, they should have talked about the genocide of the Palestinian people that has been going on. That should have been their number one focus. And I mentioned the Witkoff piece. I urge people to read it in the New York Times. There are other elements at play here. And, you know, just because they are Arab nations doesn't make this any better. The Palestinian people have been victimized. The Israeli people have been victimized. But this plan is a plan that benefits completely one side in this equation. And the Palestinian people, it will not give them the self-determination rights that they are going to need at some point as we go forward. And by the way, speaking of the New York Times, look at the latest poll numbers, have got to be very frightening to Israel. Public support in the U.S. and around the world has plummeted when it pertains to Israel.
Rick, we've only got about a minute here. What's going to happen by 6 o'clock then? Does Hamas reject the deal?
Well, you hope they don't. The only thing that's going to actually stop bloodshed in Gaza is if they say yes. And look, I mean, I have no doubt that it is a agreement with a gun at their head. But they've been holding that gun to Israel's head now for 30 years. So at the end of the day, there's one exit to violence and one entrance to relief getting into Gaza for the people of Palestine. And that is for them, the Hamas, to disarm, retreat the battlefield, give up the hostages, and allow there to be a government that actually puts the people of Palestine first.
It's never an easy conversation, but I really do always appreciate your straight talk. Rick Davis and Jeanne Zaino, I appreciate the insights, as always. Bloomberg Politics contributors for a reason. Rick and Jeanne with us here live on Bloomberg TV and radio. We're going to spend some time coming up with the chairman, Patrick McHenry, straight ahead, only on Bloomberg. Just moments from now, it looks like we're going to get our first vote. There's a live view of the Senate floor if you're with us on Bloomberg TV or on YouTube. Everyone seems to know how this is going to end. They expect the vote to be just the same as it was 2 days ago. Not enough Democrats on board, so it will fail. Then they go home for the weekend, knowing that that was a late decision here this week by Leader Thune, the Republican leader in the Senate. Send everybody home. Let them stew. Let them hear from constituents. Think about what you've done here. We talked about this a couple nights ago as we've been in the Senate over the course of this week talking with members about their decisions. Kevin Cramer, the senator from North Dakota, invoking the moral high ground when it comes to this standoff. Listen to what he said.
First of all, we're in such an odd position where the Republicans actually have some moral high ground on a government shutdown, which I've never seen in my life, and I've been here a while, and where Democrats are in a more awkward position than they generally are, to be fair, because funding the government's not that hard generally for Democrats to do. But we have the Trump factor. You have the far left factor with Senator Schumer, which has complicated their situation a little bit.
That was Wednesday. Yeah, nothing's changed since then. Here we are on Friday, and it's kind of interesting. I didn't know this when I woke up this morning, but the man who's about to join us just reminded me of what today is. If you want to just connect all the dots on passing or not passing a CR, in this case, a Biden CR, it was the 3rd of October, I believe, 2 years ago, Patrick McHenry, that the Speaker of the House was dispatched. That was a day that changed your life.
It was. I was reminded, Speaker McCarthy called me as I was coming into the studio today. He says, you know what this is? And
look at
that's what it is. I'm not as angry as I was that day. But you know, Speaker McCarthy has done quite well since leaving Congress. He's working in the business community. He's got a fabulous life, and remains a dear friend. Even despite the fact that
they're going to keep this loop going on. This is where CC has invoked the video from October 3rd of Chairman, then Speaker Pro Tem McHenry, taking it all out on that gavel. But it's
2 years ago, and McCarthy was vacated by a small group of people led by Matt Gaetz.
Yes, of course.
Small group of Republicans, because he had passed a clean continuing resolution.
Here we are again.
Here we are, 2 years ahead, and it's Republicans that are the responsible party passing a clean continuing resolution. The dynamics have so shifted on this. And today is a fascinating day. So we're going to continue to watch the Senate. The action on Capitol Hill is on the Senate side. The House did its job. They passed a clean continuing resolution. The Senate is going to just wrestle with a date change and continue to vote on this. And Leader Thune, I think, is doing a masterful job of being disciplined as leader and just saying, well, you're going to be accountable on a regular basis, multiple times a week, for your words and your actions to his Democratic colleagues. Chuck Schumer and a large enough group to pass it on the Democratic side voted for this same policy back in March. Because of the flack that Leader Schumer got in particular from his Democratic base, he was in a political box. Leader Jeffries has a very different set of circumstances. He just wants to become Speaker of the House. And as Minority Leader, that's kind of your obligation. Get the majority so you can be relevant. The House is not a relevant thing in this conversation. The action is in the Senate on how the reopening occurs because of the filibuster. And so the filibuster is the vote that they're trying to break right now. They need 60 votes for that, and they need a few more Democrats to participate in it. But this is playing out in a very, very bizarre and different way than previous shutdowns. It's seemingly it hasn't had a dramatic effect here in D.C. It seems like it's much ado about nothing. How it's kind of playing out in the body politic, which is different than previous shutdowns.
It does feel different. And I will note for the record, Patrick McHenry said the last time you were here, when we said, just wait for October, chaos, you said. You have no idea the insanity that we're in for. And here we are. And that begs the question, are there off-ramps? Are we doing this for weeks? We talked to Jeanne, Sheehan, and some other potential deal makers, and I know that the House isn't in the mix right now, but we talked to Tom Cole as well. And I say, we're ready to make a deal. We're talking. We're actually not that far apart. Do you see it that way?
Well,
these are very informal talks, by the way.
These are informal talks, not led by the leaders.
This is on the floor. This is
not.
Just
you see Hakeem Jeffries having a press conference yesterday saying nobody's called him.
Right.
Which shows he's not relevant to the conversations. Then you see the pack of senators. I think the interesting action is going to be watching the senators have conversations on the Senate floor. There are a couple things that are true. One is I think you will have a clean reopen vote. I think that will be the case. I think the end of this is Democratic submission to reopen the government. Then I think there is a willingness between some Republicans and the White House to extend for a period of time some of the Obamacare provisions that will expire at the end of this year, but not the full policy. I think that's the end point still. That was actually going to be the case regardless of the shutdown, is that there's a reasonableness component within the White House and among congressional Republicans that an extension of these subsidies for another year makes a lot of sense. And that's the Democratic ask, along with a bunch of other things they've added to the list, which don't quite fit. But I think there is a modest deal to be had post-reopen. Even if they didn't have the government shutdown, that would be the end state for the end of the year.
So how do you get to the deal then if they need the deal to reopen the government?
Submission.
So
submission. And how do you get to submission? Pain. What does that look like? Well, it looks like pain on federal employees. I think Russ Vogt has a plan of action that is intense and intensely painful for Democratic senators in particular and Democratic constituencies. He has enormous power as OMB director, and he's going to use it.
So that's not just a threat.
Oh, no, it's not a threat.
Cuts are coming.
It's real, and he has an active imagination and massive power. And together, I think he's going to do things different going into next week that are different than this week.
You see the Russ Vogt is the Reaper video? The president posted last night. He's got the big cloak and the Sith, and it doesn't look like that's something that the Democrats are making up.
The memes are amazing, completely amazing of this fight, which takes it to an internet level of craziness and zaniness.
Mariachi bands included.
Oh gosh, but all that is to say the Democratic constituencies are going to feel pain, and Democrat politicians are going to feel pain in order to come to the table to have a clean reopen vote. That's what happened in 2013 when Republicans shut down the government over what? Health care, over Obamacare. Here we are. 12 years later, same issue set, flipped constituencies. It's a really bizarre thing happening right now.
So why wait on the cuts then? Or is John Thune or the leaders saying, hey, give us a minute, White House, because this isn't going to help anybody? If we do see furloughs turn into layoffs, does that make the trust quotient even worse?
I think so, and but it also is a ratcheting effect of pain.
All right,
and frankly, it's a couple of things that I think are interesting here. One is the power dynamic on Capitol Hill between Schumer and Jeffries, and how that plays out. The second piece is OMB, and I think that's a substantial piece of action and activity. And then the political calculus by the White House on the ways that they can execute pain on their Democratic opposition. Those are the things we're going to see play out, and how they're going to ratchet down the impact on Democrats on Capitol Hill, Democratic senators.
We're seeing some cuts already in terms of funding for blue states. You saw the transit money for Chicago, New York, losing billions of dollars. Tom Tillis, who you know well, from North Carolina, senator, said earlier to Bloomberg, I think that digs us into a deeper hole. I think if you do that, you're going to create a bad faith environment. They need to be very judicious. Would you agree?
They need to be judicious, but the Democrats have made a choice here. And what they have done is argue for years that Donald Trump is an authoritarian, and he will seek to claim power and not respect checks and balances. A government shutdown under operation of law gives enormous authority to the director of OMB to carry out wide-ranging policy decisions. And the law is either on the side of the OMB director or silent. And in that silence, they're going to fill the void. So my Democratic friends are saying an authoritarian, and they're taking actions to give him more enhanced power over the federal workforce and the size and scope of government. It's an extraordinary thing that I don't think they've quite thought through. And I think next week you'll see this discussed more on the Democratic side.
Okay, so that sounds then like you see light at the end of the tunnel. If they're having that conversation next week, are we reopened a week later?
The light at the end of the tunnel could also be a train. So we have to be very careful about this. The way these things, these shutdowns work is that, it could end today. It could end in this vote series on Capitol Hill today. And we're going to we have to follow this day by day, hour by hour, because it is that fluid. And could end Monday. It could be Thanksgiving. And it's as wide ranging as that.
Wow. So you're not going to try to predict anything here. What do you think of the Republican line that we keep hearing that this is all about? And you walked right up to it. Chuck Schumer afraid to be primaried by AOC. It's as you could fit it on a bumper sticker. I hear it from almost every Republican lawmaker that we talk to, and most of them don't know Chuck Schumer very well. Is that just an easy story to tell, or is that what's going on here?
I think there's a serious story to tell on that matter. And we saw how bludgeoned Schumer was coming out of March. We saw the flack that he took.
A lot of people saw a shutdown
we saw the difference between Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer in that moment, that divide, and they live like a borough apart, right? An odd thing for them to be separated. Then we see them linked hand in hand with this shutdown now. And you think, well, I think that shows that Schumer is capitulating. The challenge here, though, is that Hakeem Jeffries does not need to be a part of any of the deal-making to reopen the government. Doesn't have to. You saw Speaker Johnson and the leadership team in the House produce a continuing resolution without the need for Democratic votes. In the Senate, because the filibuster, Schumer's going to have to participate in that. So at the end of the day, it's not going to be a good outcome for him. He's picked a fight that he cannot win with his Democratic base. Which is, I think, a political mistake on his part.
This is why the clock is going to be ticking. How do you peel off a couple of more Democrats? We've already seen 3 roll over here. Angus King, who caucuses with Democrats, part of the group. You don't need that many more. And then you don't have to make a deal to reopen the government. Is that possible? Does John Thune have the skill?
No, John Thune has the skill, and he's got the discipline. He and his leadership team have had enormous discipline, and not taking the Democratic bait, and also going out and messaging, continue to talk in a very disciplined way.
Should you meet with Chuck Schumer?
There's no need to.
No need to.
No need to.
Isn't it good politics, though, just for the picture?
Nope.
No,
because at that point, the only way you get out of the shutdown is the way Republicans got out of the shutdown with Obama in 2013, which is agree to reopen the government, and then you negotiate thereafter. What happened in 2013, after that we reopened government, there were modest but significant changes to Obamacare as a direct impact, but that was separated in time, optically from the shutdown. And that was the only way you could have the conversation. We're in a similar situation here.
We've got less than a minute. Is Kevin Cramer right? You've got moral high ground, which isn't always the case for Republicans on a shutdown?
Everyone thinks they're winning.
They sure do.
This is the reason why this shutdown is so different.
Yeah.
My Democratic friends think that they have the high moral ground. My Republican friends, they think they have the high moral ground. We will see who wins in this thing, but it's more of a wrestling match for submission.
Yeah.
Right? And down for the count. That doesn't make you feel like this is a moral debate.
He told us this was going to happen. Patrick McHenry, former Speaker Pro Tem, the former Chairman, House Financial Services, now Bloomberg Politics contributor. Happy anniversary. It's great to have you back here on Bloomberg TV and radio. This is Bloomberg.